This is the Bush Whisperer coming at you from the beautiful Penguin Sanctuary, southern tip of Africa, Cape Town, Cape Agulhas, Boulders Beach. Come to talk to you today about the moon and just how important the moon is. We've had a lot of discussion here about the sun and the solar radiance and how the sun brings the power of life force, the prana, bringing the shen of chi forth into the physical manifestational zone so that the force of life can manifest through you, for you, to fill you. So the sun is the power of life, the power of the chi that animates through the electric principle or life. So what role does the moon play? How important is the moon? And how can you work with the moon? And what will the moon bring to you? The moon is, I'd like you to consider the regulator. So if the sun was the gas tank on your gas stove, the moon would be the regulator. And as such, the moon keeps things moving in the correct cycles. And the word cycles relate to the moon very strongly. As any woman will explain to you, her cycles will be in tune with the moon's energy, in tune with the movement of the moon around the earth and relative to the sun. For the moon is able to manifest all of these deep currents that relate to and govern our hormonal systems. And so the moon is a very feminine archetype, if you want to consider it in such ways. Though I want you to consider the moon as a living being. It's quite important to understand. And we're not just speaking about anthropomorphization, which is a human habit. The reason humans anthropomorphize everything is because life is in all things, in all people, flowing back towards us and from us. A double feedback loop, if you will. The sphere of consciousness manifesting this reality. So it helps you to understand that the moon is a living consciousness, the same way that the sun is a living consciousness. And so being in tune with the moon will attune you to the natural cycles of your body. And the rhythm becomes accentuated by the causal principle. For rhythm becomes causal, and causality is how rhythm is notated. And once the causal notation has been implied upon rhythm, the shamanic principle, for the shaman is very much attuned to the rhythm of time, the rhythm of space. So in a sense, the shaman attunes to the life principle as it's actually being attuned to the physical. And this is such a powerful creative impulse within the human consciousness, which is why rhythm guides us to music, to tonality, to dance. And the rhythms keep us in our cycles, so to speak. And so the cycles are fundamental for the way in which energy moves through the meridians on the physical level. And one can use the moon's energy to become attuned to the sublime, which is quite interesting. So the act of sublimation, one could consider as the power of the moon. And by acting from sublime, one is acting from the impulse of the moon. And by attuning to the moon's frequencies, one can attune to the sublime and begin the process of sublimation. What do I mean by sublimation? Sublimation is when you bring the subconscious impulses, the subconscious thoughts, feelings, parts of this construct into point of view, perspective, awareness. And so we can attune to the moon's frequencies when the moon is rising and do the adorations of the moon. I don't need to explain those here, though I will give exercises for the adorations of the moon as we progress. though it's enough for you to become aware of the moon, where the moon is in regards to her cycles. Is she full? Is she a half moon? At the moment, the half moon is, there's the half moon, just past the half moon. So the half moon is obviously halfway between giving and taking. So the moon gives and takes. When you're planting seeds, be aware of the moon's cycles. A good way to understand the moon is to observe the natural cycles of the plants around you, where the plants are in their cycles. Observe the shoots on a tree. Observe the cycle of the moon, and how the cycle of the moon, or cycles of the moon, affect these new buds and new radicals popping out, new life. On a cellular level, the regulation of these processes are controlled, or directed, shall we say, by the process of the moon. And contemplation can help to bring one closer to the moon sphere. Bless you. So to understand that sublimation is the process of, bless you, of becoming aware of subconscious forces. And the subconscious forces are essentially what are maintaining the cycles of this construct in order for the causal principle to align the rhythm of the frequencies of the vibrating universe and bring it into the flow. For the moon is what regulates this flow. And so we can consider the moon's energy as being very much producing the physicality through this process. In the same way that the sun produces the electrical impulses and brings all of the electricity that can fill the containers, the moon can be considered as the viscous containers that are like a calendar, if you will, to keep the different fragments of time in place and regulate how the cycles of time will manifest and move through the sphere of consciousness, bringing into alignment this experience of being. So whenever you are gaining subconscious impulses, and those deep impulses and those deep currents that guide us, cause us to want to follow a particular line of action, thought, or being, this is the power of the moon coming into manifestation. I was delayed. My son had met a whole lot of children and was playing with them, so I'm back. Yeah, so the sphere of the moon is fundamental to being able to bring forth those deep subconscious currents, and being able to relate to and connect with the moon's energy is fundamental to being able to sublimate. And this sublimation is really the bringing forth into consciousness that which is subconscious. And it's also a great way to start to become aware of the etheric template of time and space. So the moon is fundamental to our inner reality, to our subconscious and our dreams and our emotions. For most of our emotions, we tend to suppress and repress much of our emotions because it would be overwhelming to experience them all at once. And so it is a natural tendency of humans to take on as much as we can consciously of this experience and to filter. And so the moon acts as a regulator and as a filter, and filters out that which is unnecessary for the practical reality right now, and regulates the flow of emotion, regulating the hormones in the process, having a very powerful effect on the Ida. So we can consider that on one level the moon relates to regulating the flows of Ida and is expressed by Pingala, which is quite interesting. In the same way that the sun is charging up and bringing the flow of Pingala and is reflected in Ida. Obviously the yang yin is fundamental to understand here, and looking at that symbol will give you an insight into the positive and negative qualities of the moon. And by positive and negative, I don't mean good or bad, I mean active and passive. So the passive sphere of the moon brings forth the active qualities of the subconscious. And the active process of the moon brings forth the cycles that keep the life force in place, in the patterns of cycles that are able to manifest the cellular cycles necessary for these energetics to manifest in the way that they do to produce organic life, cells, tissues, and the hormones that build all of these. And so we have to be aware of the moon's pull, of the magnetic forces that run through our body. And attuning to the moon, gazing at the moon, you'll first notice how you become very dreamy, and how the dreamy sensations start to pull on the edges of your awareness, almost like it wants to pull you into a sleepy state, which is a somnambulist state, where you're almost becoming aware of how this reality is a dream. And so the moon's powers are very, very, very seductive, in as much as they bring you deep into those currents, expressing the deep, deep forces which relate to your sexuality. So think of the sleeping Kundalini serpent as being the serpent of the moon. It will give you a good idea of understanding how the subconscious works. And the Kundalini serpents becoming awakened would be awakening to the sublime nature of reality, and the sublime nature of the self, and sublimating and bringing forth those subconscious currents of consciousness, awareness and energy into the sphere of active realization and awareness. And so this moon energy is fundamental to developing one's inner sight, one's inner ability to connect with energy that's abstract on the mental sphere. And in the way that the sun regulates the flow of life force, which becomes the physical sphere, the moon regulates with the mental energies, which becomes the mental sphere, and the sphere of reflection, where we reflect upon things within ourselves. This is the moon's activities in its active form. And it's important for us to be able to grasp that the moon and sun are essentially two sides of the same coin. Like and share this if you like the content, if you think it's valid and should be seen by other people. And also take time to develop this lunar flow, this lunar ray. Work with the lunar ray. Adore the moon. Feel the moon's resonances in your body. I find when I tune to the moon's energies that it's a cool energy. I feel the coolness of the moon flowing through my meridians. And it causes me to become very abstractly minded. And you'll gain lots of abstract impressions. And whenever you're getting an impression, this is the moon. You see, the moon works through impressions by bringing into a conscious field of awareness the impressions of the subconscious. This is the way in which the sublimating abilities of mind bring forth the conscious flow from the subconscious planes of existence. And realize that the moon regulates the barrier between the conscious and the subconscious. So by adoring the moon's energy, and by attuning to the moon's vibrational field, one's able to, through the cycles, see the barriers between different aspects, different energies, where the solar radiance is bringing the unity into consciousness and showing us the unifying principle, which is the life force principle expressing mind. The moon will show us the differences and the barriers between things in order to show us how things can work with each other in a sense of cooperation. I hope this has been useful. Do subscribe, get the bell. That way you'll get daily uploads from all of my videos. Have a totally gorgeous day. Don't forget to smile and start attuning to the cycles within yourself, and you'll become aware of the macrocosmic cycles in the world. And in this way, you'll be conscious of how the cycles of yourself move around yourself, bringing the conscious and subconscious energies into play. This is the Bush Whisperer coming at you from the beautiful Penguin Sanctuary. Om Shanti.